And we are live. Welcome to what we are going to call episode 85 of the Athletic Philosopher podcast. We are creeping up towards the triple digits, team, and that's going to be a really fun milestone to pass and something I'm certainly aiming for here, getting these guys going. I am your humble host, Jordan Goldstein. I'm a former university professor in sport history, sociology, psychology, philosophy, the broad sport humanities, as we called it. I used to do the teaching that none of the other profs used to do. First years, second year, big concept courses, not drilling down into special topics, but the 30,000 foot view from above, trying to convince science inclined students to give a care, to give a heart about history and philosophy. And now I do not do that anymore inside of the academy. It's not the place for creativity, imagination, authenticity, um, maybe most importantly, a healthy respect for the truth. And, things happened that, you know, I did and were done to me, and just we don't we're not there anymore. We're not in the university. Instead, we are live and deep into the world of fitness and life coaching, intertwined in my own special professor's style. I help individuals reclaim authenticity and life direction through fitness. I also help individuals who are involved in fitness already take it up a notch in terms of creativity and exploring thought patterns and limiting beliefs inside themselves. So it's a coaching that's engineered towards people who are looking to get into fitness for all the right reasons, and for people who are already in fitness who are looking to get more out of what they're already doing. I also run a coaching community where this is our aim. And in particular, we are aiming at using physical activity as a spiritual practice of self knowing, of self observing, and then self transcendence. And I call this group the Temple. I run it out of my FIA Academy. And we get together every week. We have writing reflections and prompts. We have a live group call where we are drilling deep into the meaning of our training, but also relying on the shared accountability and camaraderie of the group to continue pushing hard and challenging ourselves in the training. I also coach on the Excellent Tribal Training, which is an online endurance training team run by head coach and founder Ryan Dreyer. And I am the tribal professor, bringing this kind of flavor, this kind of mindset preparation, and we'll call open heart work to the people who want to take down big time endurance events on a team, generally with a very structured and detailed plan. So if you are interested in getting in contact with me about coaching, you can find my information on the in the show notes. If you're interested in hooking up with Team Tribal, doing wicked awesome endurance races with us, like 100 milers, Ironmans, and those types of things, I'll drop the link down there as well. All right. I teased out today's topic in the Substack Live. As always, I am simulcasting this podcast on Substack Live for my homies over there and for my people that are with me. I appreciate you. Always feel free to chime in, drop a comment, enter the conversation, challenge me. This is a live and interactive process, and that always makes it a little more fun. So thank you for the Substack people. If you're not following me on Substack or on socials, show notes as well. Okay, so I teased this episode by wanting to talk a little bit, not about the philosophical angle of sports, but the historical angle. And what the historical angle can give us, in particular, when we are looking to live better day to day through physical activity, and not just like physical health, but mental and spiritual health as well. Like, what can a focus on history reveal for us. That's what I wanted to talk about. Because while I am now kind of in the broad world of philosophy, that's not where I started my academic career. It's not where I aim myself in my studies. Maybe tangentially, which I'll talk about as we go along here. But my trade is as a historian. I was trained as an academic historian. I was trained to write in the narrative style, and I was trained to spend long, long hours in archives poring over incredible amounts of data in the form of old letters, old newspaper reports, old anything old. Bring me anything old and let me look at it for a long time, and then I can make sense of it. The way that I would describe my historical work would be contextual narrative. And contextual narrative is actually a lot like philosophy. And this is going to start to connect a few of these dots here. I actually have no notes on this one. Like, this is all completely off the seat of my pants. So thanks for being with me here. I've been doing a little bit of work on creating more refined and ironed out presentations. We're going to do a little bit of a reveal in a few weeks based on what I've been working, but I just did the first one of those right before this one. So, in order to balance out the preparation that I did for that one, we have zero preparation and an inspiration on an idea that I've wanted to talk about for a long time. All right. Contextual narrative. What the heck does that even mean? Well, I've got a great example right here. This is my manuscript. This is my sole authored historical academic work entitled Canada's Holy Grail, Lord Stanley's Political Motivation to Donate the Stanley Cup. I published this in, I think it's 2002. Let me just double check. Historian knows where to find dates. 2021. So it's five years ago this guy was made, but it's also, if I can find that big yellow honker around here somewhere, it's also my dissertation. He's around. So this is an adaptation of my historical dissertation that I used to get my PhD in kinesiology. And when I say I have a PhD in kinesiology, it's just history. That's all I did, was just history. But the history that I did is called contextual narrative. And as I reflect back on the last, well, why don't we just go to 2021? The last 5-6 years of my life, I had trained and I had aimed and I had guided myself towards a career as a university professor in the academy doing sports history research. And now I'm outside of the academy and I'm coaching individuals with a broad philosophy on the deep spiritual utility and function and nature of athletic training and athletic competition. And you might think, and I certainly think a lot about this, I mean, it's my life. How did I get here? And what are the ways in which I was training in one way to actually perform in another way? So often in the coaching world, what we end up discovering when we work with somebody and we work with that person, not just for a 3-month stint, but I'm coming up on, 2, 3, 3.5 years of working with these individuals, is the thing you initially thought you were working on is actually not what you're working on. So this is actually one of the very first things I realized when I became a coach, when I became a fitness coach who was looking to deeply inspire people through like the deep and rich history of athletics. Like, they didn't start out with the idea of philosophy. I started out with the idea of motivating and inspiring individuals with the grand, legendary and mythological and just romantic history of sports, the things that I was teaching to my first and second year students about the ancient Greeks, for example. And recognizing that in the modern world of sports, we were missing that heart and soul and spirit, that the ancient Greeks believed was at the center of why this thing was a positive utility, was a positive activity in their society. So positive that it was at the top athletics were at the top of the self-development or the self-development pyramid, or if we want to think in psychology, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but self-actualization, right? So in order to self-actualize, athletic training was the best way to get there, the best way to get there for the ancient Greeks, the classical Greeks, the ones who gave us philosophy. Pretty cool stuff. And I thought that I could educate individuals in a coaching context on this deep spiritual nature, and that I would tailor my coaching to individuals. And I was also doing consulting at this time, consulting for teams, helping them build cultures of accountability and of honesty and of integrity within their teams using this information. Um, so even as I continued to like move out of the academy and into the coaching world, I was relying on my knowledge of history. I was relying on my skills as a historian. And that leads us back to this idea of contextual narrative. Contextual narrative. Now, one of the reasons why you should not like history these days is because of the way in which the historical method has been destroyed and decimated and despoiled by the ideologues. And in this case, it's the Marxists. Now, there have been tons of ideologues in the course of academic history. Academic history actually started itself as an outgrowth of the ideology of Auguste Comte, the guy who gave us positivism. Positivism is this idea that we have objective facts, like in the world of science. Why can't we approach the world of humans the same way and derive objective facts on human interactions and human understanding? So, like psychology, sociology, were then established as these scientific based studies of human behavior. And this gave us the rise of the social sciences. I don't even think social science should exist. I don't think you can scientifically study human behavior. I don't think it's something where you can control anywhere close to the proper variables. You know, the thing that makes science work is the complete control of all the variables so that you know that the one that you're manipulating is either causing or not causing the change that you're hoping to observe. How are you going to control variables in society? How are you going to control variables in a psychological study? It's not possible. I kind of this came across this when I was an undergrad myself. And if you've been in undergrad at a big university before and you've been in the social sciences, you'll know that when you pass the psychology bulletin, the psychology department, there's all of these studies that you can sign up for. You can be a research participant. You know, it's a good way to earn some extra money when you are a student. You know, you sign up for a study, they pay you $10. It's 30 minutes of your time. That was 20 years ago, so I guess they'd have to pay you like $100 now with inflation. But you get the idea. you get the idea. And I just kept thinking, what if I just decide to mess your experiment up? It's like I had taken psychology courses, so they give you a little bit of information on research design. And so you understand, like, okay, they're asking me these questions, but what they really want to know is not anything related to these questions. So if you're an individual and you sign up for a study, you can just decide to do whatever the heck you want. You don't have to have high integrity. You can fudge the studies. You can use a totally different motivation. And then the person on the other side, how are they going to know what's in your heart? Like, as just one example. And if you've got like 1,000 research subjects, you're going to verify the integrity of all those subjects. Then think about society and, like, you know, people out there in the world. Like, there's no chance you can have a proper study that is scientific. So the social sciences, get rid of them. Get rid of them all. That's the problem with history these days. It's all social science based. It's all a bunch of people with theories, and they place their theories onto the past. And then they are describing effectively like what they think the theory should say about the past, which isn't actually what happened in the past. It should be obvious. It should be obvious that history doesn't unfold neatly around a theory, a contemporary social theory around how people relate to each other, when the social theory itself cannot even be validated as true. It's lunacy. But that's what history is these days. It's just ideologues. But I don't want to just come down on the Marxists. Clearly, they're evil and they're awful. However, this is not something that is just related to like the postmodern turn of the 1960s and what's happened in the academy since then. Ideologues have always infiltrated and have always dominated the academy. The academy is better known as a place of gatekeeping and of knowledge hoarding than it is of true inquiry for the truth. And I had to be disabused of that as a young romantic intellectual. It's like, oh, we're at the university, we're here to learn, and oh, but it's just these people that are in my way now, and we need to go back to the original university. And then you look at the original university, like, oh my gosh, it was even worse back then. I should never have been a prof. I mean, I should be a prof, but I should never have been in a university. That's clear. That's clear from this. We're a little bit all over the place, but I love it. Okay, so contextual narrative. What does that style of history look like? Well, the historical method, the proper historical method, we go all the way back to some guy named Homer. You ever heard of him? He wrote these incredible epic poems. Maybe you've heard of them. The Iliad, the Odyssey. I think there's an Odyssey movie coming out. Pretty cool. It's getting mixed reviews because everything is subject to the culture wars these days. We can't just have nice things. Not allowed to have nice things. That's okay. So Homer, right? He kind of sets the scene for the historians. And the world's first historian is Herodotus. And Herodotus, he is looking to chronicle the Persian invasion of Greece in the 5th century. And he gives us the historical method, which is like part mythology, part documentary, part story, part fact. And he's trying to give us what happened. He's not trying to give us just the mythological or just the legendary. He's trying to give us what happened. Now, it just so happened he lived in a time where the gods were an ever-present part of people's lives and responsible for a lot of the things that people did. And so what Herodotus does is he goes around and he talks to every single person he can, figuring out, well, what's the story? What happened here? What happened there? And he presents the history with a bunch of different explanations. This person said this person contradicted him, this person said that. Here's generally what we think to be true. Here's how the gods may have played a hand in this. So there's all of these different elements that go into the description of the past, and that's the context. Context is the overview. Context is, and this is like one of the greatest lessons I ever learned training to become a historian from my mentor, Dr. Craig Simpson, who is a very intriguing and interesting fellow in his own right, but he really shaped the way I approached history. And this is the lesson that I've never forgotten. And it was, what is the role of the historian? What do you actually do as a historian? Do you present what actually happened? Are you the ultimate arbiter of objective truth as to what did or didn't occur and how it occurred in exactly that fashion? That's what people think historians do, but that's not what they do. And if you really think that that's what a historian should do, I want to challenge you right this second. You be a historian for yourself. If you, listening out there, can tell me with 100% objective accuracy what happened to you since the moment you woke up to right now, you could be a historian. Do you think you could tell me with 100% objective accuracy every single thing that has happened to you since you woke up today to where you are now? That could just be a few hours. And you're just like, oh my gosh, gaps. Who said this at what time? What time did I? Yeah. You can't even recreate with 100% accuracy the thing that just happened to you, and you experienced it. Now try to do that for something you weren't around for, you weren't alive for. You don't even live in that time period. You may not even live in that area. You got to go back hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years, and tell people what happened back then. Talk about arrogance. Okay, so what does the historian actually do? In the words of Professor Simpson, the historian's role is to contextualize the past. To contextualize the past. Meaning, we make events understandable in their own time. Repeat. We make events understandable in their own time. So let's take the object of my book, the subject of my book, both the object and the subject, the donation of the Stanley Cup. Okay? This is something that happened. We have a record. We know when it was given. We have some semblance as to why it was given. But we don't know the full environment that created it. There's little snippets. And this is going to give you a really good sense into how this kind of historical thinking blended and merged and actually moved me towards the world of coaching. We're going to get there, I promise. Maybe we'll go in a Greek trireme together, all rowing together. It's fun to have a podcast, guys. It's a lot of fun. Okay. So we make events understandable in their own context. So Lord Stanley, I think it's March 12th, 1892, somewhere in March. The date is in the book. You can get me on it later. It doesn't matter if it's the right date or not, right? There's a letter that he writes. His aide de camp, like his personal assistant, rises. It's the year-end banquet for the Rito Rebels hockey club. And Lord Stanley, his message is read that he is going to donate a challenge cup to award the national champion in ice hockey in Canada. And we kind of know that happened. We know the Stanley Cup is still being awarded today. It was actually just the subject of crazy controversy because the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, the team that won the cup, put his name, his wife's name, and the name of his 4 kids at the front of the band. You know, it's the best sports trophy in the world, like by far. Number one, it's one of the oldest, but no other trophy grows and has like a living history like the Stanley Cup. Every time a team wins, they get like a band, a little part of a band on the cup with all the names of the people on the team that contributed to the win. And then when the bands just keep going, they actually have started to remove the ones at the top. They have a standard size now for the cup, but eventually, you know, it was literally just a punch bowl. It's literally just the cup on the top. But when I say Stanley Cup, you think about the big trophy, the one that weighs like 35 pounds that you can hoist up over your head. You know, that grew because of this tradition of allowing the names of the people that win it to grow alongside of the trophy. And that emerged out of one of these teams, and I believe it was the Ottawa Silver 7. And you can get me if I'm wrong on this. I think it was 1907, where some of the people scratched their names on the inside of the original cup, and they didn't want people defacing the cup, so they started adding the names below and growing the trophy. And there's actually 3 different cups. That very first cup is in the Hockey Hall of Fame, and it doesn't see the light of day because it's silver and it's so brittle that if it's put out in light, the light will crumble it. It's so brittle and fragile. So then, contextual. Understanding the environments that things occur, what allows people to make decisions, what allows events to unfold as they do, so that we in the present can get a little bit of a handle on it, so we can recognize what was going on at the time and see how it resonates, reverberates, or rhymes with what's going on today. Another thing that people think historians should be good at is predicting the future. No. This is like lesson number 1 that they teach you like in undergrad in history. You don't predict no future. No. That is way beyond your scope. You can't even objectively recreate the past accurately. How are you going to project anything out into the future? So we don't make predictions on the future. This idea that you know your past, know the past to know the future It's more like understand the past to recognize the present so that you can positively affect the future. It's more like that. It's more about recognizing what's going on in the present. Remember that. Remember that because that's key when we get to the coaching thing. Very important. It's a very important facet of all this. Okay. So, one of the things that I wanted to uncover about this trophy, this donation of the Stanley Cup, was did Lord Stanley have any political aspiration? Was this part of nation building? Because he's not just some guy, he's the Governor General of Canada. He's the highest ranking politician in the land. He's the direct representative of the Queen of England. And the Queen of England is the head of Canada. Like, we're a constitutional monarchy. Like, we have a parliament, we have a prime minister, but technically the Queen is in charge. The House of Windsor rules Canada. And so the Governor General is the hand, at this point, it was the hand-picked representative of the Queen from Britain. So here we have this British aristocrat who comes to Canada. He comes in 1888, and in 1892, he donates a national championship trophy, the first national championship trophy for ice hockey. How does that happen? How does that happen? And what situates that into the larger current of what's going on in Canada at the time politically? That's what this book is about. It's not about, look, I found this letter in Lord Stanley's archives that says, I am planning to donate a national ice hockey trophy so that I can affect political unity and Canadian national identity as part of my role as Governor General. It's like if I'd found that, I don't need all this. I don't need all this. All I say is, look at this letter. Proves it. Okay? But so often in history, we don't have what we call the smoking gun. We don't have the smoking gun. So we've got to collect an incredible amount of contextual information to make an assertion that could be accurate and believable. So would Lord Stanley have even thought that this was part of his duty? Yes, the book goes into that. Could ice hockey have actually worked at this time to affect political unity? That's another thing I go into in the book. So without that direct evidence, the historian has to immerse himself or herself and then the reader into that environment completely so that we can make understandable this English aristocrat donating an ice hockey trophy in Canada. And when you dig in deep, as I did and as I wanted to do, you do discover, hey, there's some meat on that bone here. There's some meat on that bone. So a contextual approach gives us the environment, and then the narrative gives us the story. The narrative gives us the story. And this is like the real power of history. History is one element that proves to us that the narrative is perhaps the greatest invention that humans have ever come up with. Maybe it's not even an invention. Maybe the narrative is actually inborn inside of us. And what is the narrative? The narrative is the story. And what's a story? A story is just something with a start, a middle, and an end. That's a story. And now you start thinking, well, is there anything that we understand that isn't a narrative? Like, think about it. What do you understand that doesn't have a reference point to the past and the future? The present? Okay, the present is you and all your experiences, and then you moving on from this moment into something else. Your day is a narrative. Your life is a narrative. Everything that happens to you is part of the narrative. Okay, sure. But what about something like an experiment? What about science? What about a scientific experiment? What is the scientific method other than a progression of a story? The start is the hypothesis, the middle is the experiment, and the end is the conclusion and the application. And you run through stories. Everything is a story. mythology. I mean, like the way in which we understand everything is done in a story, is done in a narrative. This makes me believe that the narrative actually is an inborn feature of being a human and not something we invented or created, but is something that is just expressed. We cannot make sense of anything in this world without a start, a beginning, and an end. This is why concepts like eternity elude us. This is why the infinity wheel is such a crazy symbol to look at. This is why fractals blow our brains apart, because we're trying to figure out where's the start and where's the end. And it just keeps churning and it just keeps churning and it just keeps churning. We don't like that. Our brains are not comfortable in that environment. Our brains are comfortable in a narrative. So we understand everything in the narrative. Okay. So contextual narrative history is really this. This is kind of like what's been rumbling up in the brain and it's kind of been racking me up a little bit here. Contextual narrative history is the story of you. That's the story of yourself. That's the story of all of us. Because in order for me to know who I am, I have to recognize my environment. I have to recognize my past experiences. I have to put them into some sort of a story that I can tell myself about myself, that I can see working towards where I'm currently at, and then I have the ability then to project that on out into the future. And if I'm paying attention to this about myself, well, then I can, as a good historian might suggest, use the present as a launching point towards a better future. We can't predict the future, but we can recognize the context and the forces and the events and the attitudes and the individuals who bring us to whatever situation we're at in the present. And then that informs us in turn how to take the next step forward, how to take the next step forward. And this kind of all makes sense to me, right? Now I've got hindsight. You know, when I was writing my dissertation, it was pure history. I'm a historian. But then as I started to, have discussions with my supervisors, my committee supervisors, as I started to write and as I started to get critiques and as I started to get challenges, which is their job, they got to stress test what I write. It started to dawn on me that I wasn't actually doing history. I was actually doing philosophy. I was actually doing interpretation. It was more philosophical interpretation of the past than actual history, because another job of the historian is to document. Okay? So the historian documents and preserves. That's how we get the context, right? That's how we're able to understand these environments, is because we have fragments, we have pieces of the past that we can go to understand. So there is a documentary element of the historian's work as well. Historian is like part archivist, part myth maker, right? This is a good way to think about it. We write legends, but we also house evidence. It's not a bad gig if you can get it, if you like that kind of thing. And so, when I look back at what I was actually doing in a book like this, I was interpreting context. And I was putting that interpretation into a story that could be understood easily and readily and then believed. And I was synthesizing a lot of complex information in terms of differing variables that we don't really know the weight of each. We know they may be present, but we don't know how impactful they are. I can't measure it. This set me up perfectly to do exactly what I'm doing now. And let me tell you how and why. When I am coaching an individual, I need to know the context. I need to know their history and physical activity. I need to know what they're currently struggling with. I need to know when they've been on fire in the past. I need to know what they believe is dragging them down right now. And a lot of what I like to accomplish in the first few calls is the opening of space, right? So it's an opening of space to allow information to come out. And for the people that, I've coached and they know this about me, one of the great values that I believe I provide, and I believe it's one of my spiritual gifts. This is one of the reasons why I was moved into history, I believe, and moved out of history and into coaching, is that I can pick out the needle in the haystack. I can sift through what seems to be like endless amounts of garbage to find the gold. I mean, I could give you some incredible examples just from Lord Stanley's archives. When I was at the Liverpool Library doing primary source research, there were 32 boxes of materials for Lord Stanley. You open up this box of materials, and I'm not even joking you. One of these boxes you open up, and there is maybe something like 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 letters. You don't even know how many there are. It's overwhelming. And you open them up, and all it is letters. All it is letters. You don't know when they're from. You don't know who's writing them. They're not organized in any fashion. But you open it up, and it's just like, what do I do with this? What do I do? I don't have time to go through all this stuff. I'm only here for a week, and then I got to go to another library to a different part of England for a week, right? It's just, what do you do? Okay, you recognize how to find the needle in the haystack. Thank goodness, this is the role of the archivist and the other historian, there was a documentation about a few of these boxes which were solely related to Canada. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing Lord Stanley in Canada. I don't have time to do his entire life, but I just need to see what is in these boxes related to Canada. And you just don't know what's coming out of these boxes. You just don't know what's coming out of these boxes. And you don't know what you're going to need when you write. And so I just took as much as I could. One of these, I'm not even joking. This is so fun. One of these boxes, because the Stanley family, they were big into hunting and fishing. And they had this beautiful summer residence on the Cascapedia River in the Saguenay in Quebec, which is famous for fishing, especially salmon fishing. And they used to compete in these fishing derbies against each other, all the members of the household. So one of the boxes you open up, and all it is ledgers and charts and measures of fish that were caught during the various summers that they were in Quebec. And underneath all these various ledgers of all the weights and the amount of fish that are caught on all these different days are legitimate paper cutouts the size of the fish. So they literally they took the fish and they traced the fish onto these paper. And some of them are like, caught this day by Victor Stanley, 56 pounder. They're giant. I'm like, what am I going to do with the fish cutout? Believe me, it's in here. I figured out how to cite it. I figured out exactly how to cite it because that shows their enthusiasm for sports. And not just like, we like to fish, but we like to fish in an athletic fashion where we're competing and we're measuring and we're recording. We're recording, right? So their family was like a sport-loving family, and that just becomes one piece of evidence that I can bring in and say, hey, look, they competed in fishing for salmon on the Cascapedia River. And I honestly, I think I don't have many images in here, but I might have been able to sneak one of those images in the actual book. Let me see. I know it's in the dissertation, but I don't have my dissertation right around me here. It's somewhere. Yeah, I didn't even get one in here. I didn't even get it in here. It's definitely in the dissertation. Let me just take 1 second here to see if I can find that monstrosity of a book. Nope. Okay, that's fine. All good. It's all good. So then the real value of my historical training and context is narrative is being able to pick out salient, impactful, important pieces of information from a plethora of sources and evidence and then to synthesize them into a coherent and accurate story and understanding. Now, one of the spiritual gifts that I'm able to bring because of that training to my coaching is, and this happens so frequently, and one of the reasons why people need space and need a coach or need someone to talk to is you're very confused about yourself, right? You're inside your head. You're swirling around the same thing over and over again. And it's like the moment you get it out, what is it? It's like vomit. It's like word vomit. It's blah! I'm just talking. It's like I'm ranting and I don't really know, but I'm saying one thing and all of a sudden something else comes out. And I didn't even mean to, but I've been speaking for 40 minutes. Sometimes on an hour-long call, I'm silent for 58 minutes while the person on the other side just dumps everything out. And they say, and my people, they will always say, I'm so sorry, like just word vomiting and I'm just going on and I'm ranting and they're tangents. And I look at them and I say, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to give you the space, and then I'm going to pick up a few salient pieces of information that are necessary for you to understand right now in a different context. So we've got narrative and we've got context. So I allow people to open up and to flood me with information. Could be about fitness, could be about relationships, could be about life direction, could be about a whole bunch of different things. This was the really intriguing revelation that happened very early on in my coaching, where I thought, I'm going to inspire people to become fit and to become, individual killers in the sense of going after their dreams by talking to them about the ancient Olympians and the hoplites and the beginnings of democracy and all these things. And it's like, ain't nobody care about that. They care about themselves and what's going on inside their brains. And the second you turn them on to the courage element inside of fitness, which is the real self-knowing, self-transcending power, that's what it is. It's the courage. It's that you get courage to keep going forward or to look at yourself in an unflattering light and say, I'll fix that, instead of, that's me forever. You end up with this courage to try. That's the real power of this whole thing. And once I was able to put the courage into people's hearts, it's like they just started talking about things that I didn't really expect. I didn't think I would become a life coach. It just sort of happened in the way that I was talking to people about fitness. I was opening their hearts up, and out came the truth. Out came the truth about what they really wanted. Then this gave me my whole tag of the truth is in the training. Like, and you crack it open and you go to the bottom. And then once you get to the bottom, you keep going. You really keep going. But I wouldn't be able to so comfortably pivot in real time if I didn't have this historical basis. It sounds crazy. And I don't necessarily know if it's all there, but to me, with hindsight, it's all making good sense to me. And so when I am coaching somebody, I need to know the context, then I need to know the current narrative. So that when you on our coaching call, I know the environment. You've already told me your aspirations. You've already told me your dreams. You've already told me the why. You've told me what the struggles are. You told me the pattern that keeps happening, that keeps limiting you. You've told me what the promised land looks like, what glory is for you. So that when you get stuck, when you get confused, where you don't know how to take the present moment, integrate the past, and then project out positively into the future, well, you can turn to a historian, because that's what a historian does. A historian contextualizes the present by contextualizing the past. If I can make events understandable in the past, I can understand them in the present by using the same prisms of perspective. And if you are the person I'm talking to, if you are the subject and the object, well, it's actually the responsible historian inside of me that is synthesizing, interpreting, and pointing the way forward. Isn't that wild? Isn't that wild that the historian inside of me is responsible for the coach inside of me? You wouldn't necessarily think that would happen. I didn't think so. But this is I think true. I think it's revealed through the beauty of hindsight, which again, hey, what's a good skill of the historian? Oh, that's hindsight. That's the ability to look back with a different perspective to get a different understanding, a more clear understanding. The present is concealed for so many reasons. Just think about the way your eyes limit what you see in terms of your field of vision and the electromagnetic spectrum, like the light spectrum. The present is concealed. The past can illuminate, but it's even more shrouded in shadows. And when we're talking about you as an individual, it's the same thing. Your past is shadowed. It's knowable, but is difficult. And your present is concealed. It's concealed by your mind. It's concealed by your ego. It's concealed by the limits that you've put into the story that you tell yourself about yourself. And then that creates limited and unsatisfying steps towards the future. Let me bring fitness into this, and then we'll wrap up for today. Thanks everybody for sticking with it. I see we've got some internet issues over on the Substack Live. I hope it hasn't been too choppy over there. Fitness is a great nexus between past, present, and future. Because in the present moment, all there is pain. All there is struggle. When I'm doing a mile test, doesn't matter how many mile tests I've done before. That one hurts. The one I'm in hurts. Doesn't make it any easier to go through in the sense of what I've got to give. But if I've done a couple of mile tests before, it is easier. It's easier in the mind. It's easier for me to have reference points within the experience. I can more accurately project out into the future from where I'm at the present. So again, if I've done a mile test trying to run as fast as I can for just a mile, and the first time I tried it, I go out too fast, and then I've got to slow down. I recognize for the second time that I do this, maybe I don't go out quite as fast and I can maintain a pace. And then I may get to the end of that second trial where I've maintained a pace, but I'm not as tired as I should be. So by the third time, I got to go push a little bit harder. And now that I've got 1, 2, and 3 times of doing this, maybe I can project out to the future and predict, hey, what might I do on this one if I really train for it, if I prepare myself, if I dial in, if that's the main session that I'm doing that day. So the training, it allows us to embody that process. It allows us to embody that process of integrating past, present, and future together into the one action, the singular action that I'm doing. Because yes, there is only the present moment, but the present moment doesn't exist without the other moments on the other side. And so when you practice fitness and when you have a keen understanding about this self-knowing element, this spiritual element of it, this way to get to the top of the self-actualizing pyramid, you become a historian of yourself. And you become hopefully as dispassionate or as objectively bent as the historian is. Now, nobody is absent of subjective bias. Everybody values things, and we value some things more than others. And the way we value those things, like that dictates how we look at things, what we look at, and how we rank them in importance. History is like a hologram in that way. It's like a hologram with a real center. Is one of the ways I like to describe it. One of my committee members, who was a deconstructionist postmodernist, he liked to say that history was like nailing jello, or he used to say like postmodernism was nailing jello to the wall. And I thought, well, and you're telling me to do history like that? Like you're telling me to be a postmodern historian and a deconstructionist? Then what the heck are we doing? If the event is the jello and my role is to nail the jello to the wall, what am I doing? I'm creating a mess. That's what I'm doing. I'm creating a mess. So I don't like that analogy. I like the hologram analogy. I like the hologram analogy because depending on where I look at the hologram, if I'm on top, if I'm below, if I'm to the side, and the way that, the light in the room's like, I'm going to see a different part. I'm going to see a different part of the hologram depending on where I'm at. And there's a 360-degree view of the hologram. But the thing about just the hologram is it's not real. Like I can put my hand right through the hologram. So that doesn't quite work because in history we have things that happen. There are events. So history is like an event, which is a hologram with a center. So there's something in the middle. I can't put my hand right through the hologram. Like there is, I'll hit something. I'll hit something real. But what I actually see is the hologram. I see the interpretations of other historians scaffolding onto each other to provide us a 360-degree view of the event. So I need 10 different historians with 10 different viewpoints to talk to me about one different event if I want to get the most clear representation of what that event actually was and what it means and what it meant. All right. That's what fitness does. Fitness is the hologram with the center. It's the merging of the objective and the subjective. It's the line on the yin and the yang that separates the white and the black. Okay? It's the hologram with the center. When I lace up my running shoes and I go for a 4-mile run, which I did yesterday, that's the center. Now, what does it mean? Ooh, that's that. And then I get to construct a hologram. And I can construct it however I want to based on where I think I need to go in the future, which is predicated upon all of my past experiences and the present moment. And this works out yesterday as to like, okay, 4-mile test. What's the it's not 4-mile test, it's 4-mile run. What's the context? Hot day, 93 degrees in the North Shore suburbs of Chicago. I got to fit it in between working and kid pickup schedule. And I didn't actually do it very well yesterday. It was not the greatest scheduling on my part. So I had ideas about where I was going to run, what route I was going to do. I was going to do maybe a new route closer to my one kid's school, camp pickup. Didn't happen. I just had to go right from my front door and get right back to my front door. And how did it go? Well, I've run 4 miles quite a lot, so I know what a decent pace is around a decent heart rate average, but also knowing that heat makes it just difficult. And I can take the one run yesterday and I can project it onto future competitions. And the next competition is Backyard Ultra. So each one of these training sessions gives me something to work with. It's not just all interpretation. I've done something. There's a real event. I can actually look at it. Now, if I recognize that athletics is really for spiritual growth and is really for spiritual self-knowing, I don't just get the objective record of how fast I ran. I get the subjective elements too. And that is our window into self-transcendence through athletics. I did the thing. Now, what perspective can we take? How can we view this hologram? Like we can view it 1,000 different ways. It's 360 degrees. We can view it from innumerable spaces and vantage points. And if you want it to reveal something to you on your willpower, it can. If you want it to reveal something to you based on your integrity, it can. If you want it to reveal something about your courage, your discipline, your internal fortitude, your egotism, your self sabotage, your self deception, we can find it because it will be there depending on how we want to look at it. And that ultimately is how we bring this contextual narrative style into the world of philosophically coaching athletics through the spirit. It's pretty wild, but that's fun. It's fun in the sense of not needing the specific program in order to affect the actual outcome. And when it comes to coaching, what's the actual outcome? Helping someone live a better life in the day to day, helping somebody get healthier in body, mind, and spirit, helping them get off blood pressure meds and to drop 40 pounds, helping them to repair the relationships with their distant family members, or to allow them to believe in their destiny so much that they go out and they start that side hustle, which eventually becomes the real thing, which brings them to a place where they have more time and more freedom to live how they choose. And if they're working with me, that's generally spending more time with my family. That's where the wealth should go. Spending more time with your family. A lot of dads who want it all come to me for exactly that reason. Because we can utilize the training as the event, as a truth that we can rely upon. This is not some apparition. This is not some hoax. It's another thing in history is there's a lot of things that people say happened that are lies, that are hoaxes. Look up the Abner Doubleday hoax for baseball if you want one of the biggest ones of all time. That is a doozy of a hoax. But what's cool about the Doubleday hoax is that even though it was predicated on a lie, it's actually blossomed into something with a lot of truth and meaning and value in it. And if you've ever been to Cooperstown, New York, you will know exactly what I'm suggesting and what I'm saying here. But that's another thing. Like in the past, we just don't like forgeries, fakes, lies, distortions. They're all there. That's part of sifting through the haystack to find the needle. It's part of the garbage, right? A lot of the things that people say about themselves are not true. A lot of the ways in which you describe yourself, it's not true. It's not fair to who you actually are. It's either rose-colored and I'm not taking all the responsibility I should, or like I'm way too hard on myself and I don't give myself the credit. And it's very difficult for any individual to accurately understand themselves because you're the fish in the water. How are you supposed to know? So the role for me as the coach on the outside is, okay, let's get some reality in the situation. Talk to me about your training. What are you doing in training? What do you like about training? Like another thing that I love to accomplish with people is to bring back fun and joy and love and to open up the heart. And so tell me what you like to do. Let's go do it. Then when you're doing it, we're going to figure out some really unpleasant things about yourself that lead the way to future improvement. Use the past to create understanding in the present to create positive action towards the future. That's what the historian should be doing. That's what the coach should be doing. There's a lot of synergy here. It's really neat. And when we have fitness as our locus, we actually have something real. You know, I had to go to the archives. I had to travel across an ocean to get the evidence to put into this book so that I could show people, hey, this contextual narrative story that I'm telling you about the donation of the Stanley Cup, it's believable. It's honest. That's what fitness does for us. Fitness brings us the honesty. Fitness brings us the truth so that we can start becoming accurate believers in the best of our potential, in the best of ourselves. And then who wouldn't want to live towards that? Sounds amazing. I'm going to wrap this up because I want to give myself, we're a little past the internal time cutoff. You know, if profs didn't get kicked out of their rooms by other profs, they'd never end their classes. When you have your own classroom, like a podcast, and no one is telling you to get off, well, you may go a little bit long. So we're gonna wrap this guy up. Thank you so much to everybody on the Substack Live who fought through the unstable internet connection. I appreciate you all. Thanks so much for everybody here listening. This was a little bit of a personal exploration that's philosophic, but I think the ultimate value for you, the listener, is recognizing the thing that you're doing may not be exactly related to the thing that you're going to need it to do in the future. So you have to trust the process. You have to go where your heart says. You have to recognize the gifts that are inside of you, the talents that you have, and you have to be open and creative to the ways that you can bring those to other people's lives to help them. You know, I thought all that I could do with history is publish articles and books about history and then lecture people about history. But it turns out the method that I learned intimately as a historian was the exact method I needed to help dozens and dozens of people so far in my short, 2 to 3 year coaching career with this deep philosophy, which, funny enough, I learned by studying history. So there you go, a little bit full circle. That's what I want everybody here to walk away with. The thing that you're currently doing may not be at its biggest value until you're using it to do something completely different. How cool is that potential? There's definitely a sports analogy in there somewhere, but I'm going to cliffhang it and I'm going to let it sit out there. Again, if you are interested in contacting me about any coaching opportunities, individual or inside my group, the information will be in the show notes page. If you're listening on Substack, message, DM right now. That's your sign. Tribal training as well, where we do a lot of this similar stuff, just with a more intensive endurance training focus. You'll have the information to apply to join the team as well. See you guys in the next one. Thank you so much. Onward. Next episode is 86. And what a beautiful number 86 is. All right. Peace and love.